Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, a climate check on the skilled trades, with many workers gearing up for retirement. Plus, the latest on the stalemate between Stellantis and upper levels of government. Still no deal, but officials keep issuing assurances. A devastating loss in Wallaceburg. The community is mourning after 3 young people died in a crash over the weekend. And May means it's time for gardening. We'll hear stories about how growing vegetables helps folks stay connected to their roots. Let's begin tonight with the skilled trades. They've got a problem. Folks are retiring and not enough young people are joining the ranks. It's got some employers worried about the future.
This is mold making. I mean, this is where we assemble.
Walking through the shop floor at Laval Tool and Mold, plant manager Mike Jenner is aware of a pressing need: more skilled workers.
You know, the average age of tool makers in this city is getting older, like myself, and we need to find some of these young hands and minds to replace us, and it's getting difficult. Us personally, we probably have, I would say 1/3 of our staff, at least 1/3 of our staff, in the next 5 years that would be looking at retirement. Those are large numbers to fill, and that's can be a real brain drain on your company when those days come, right? So we've got to get busy. We got work to do.
The company is currently hiring mold makers, designers, and program managers with about 5 positions open. But finding talent and keeping talent is more difficult these days.
Young people today, they're very protective of their time. And what I mean by that is, there used to be almost a large commitment that came with an apprenticeship that you were going to work your 50, 55 hours a week. There was lots of overtime involved. And I find that people today, they're not looking for that. And we failed to react to that. We failed to adapt.
The company has shifted the way it operates to attract more young people. Flexible schedules and weekends off are a few examples of that. At the same time, Jenner says there's good money to be made.
There's good $100,000 a year jobs available in this industry.
According to a document by Workforce Windsor Essex, qualified people across a number of different trades could make wages between $20 and $30 an hour. Though one expert says if unionized, they could make 30 to 35% more than that. But this shortage isn't just a local problem. The Minister of Labour says it's province-wide, with 1 in 3 certified tradespeople over the age of 55 and nearing retirement.
I mean, we've got a lot of work to do. I'm not blind to the idea.
There are lots of job vacancies. According to Statistics Canada, at the end of last year, there were about 2,800 job vacancies in the trades category for the Windsor to Sarnia region. That's up from about 2,100 from the same time the previous year.
We are making headway. I've been critical of governments of all stripes in the past for telling young people that the only way to be successful in life is by going to university, but that's simply not the truth. The career in the skilled trades are well-paying, meaningful. You can start your own business, travel anywhere in Canada. So we've been working for the last 4 years to really end the stigma around the skilled trades. And I'm proud to say that today versus 12 months ago, apprenticeship registrations are up 25%. Across the board.
McNaughton says the province is doing its part by investing in training centres and partnering with the federal government to bring in more immigrants to work in the trades, but that it certainly takes time and the need is great.
We need 100,000 construction workers, for example, over the next 10 years to build 1.5 million homes.
This was an existing bathroom.
Contractor Mark McLean has experienced the shortage firsthand.
I'm booked for 1 to 2 years in advance and trying to keep up and find people to help me out getting these jobs done is near impossible.
Better pay is one incentive he says will help attract people to a career that's often hard labor.
I just know of a lot of old timers that are getting out of it, and I don't see a lot of people ready to fill in the gaps and take their place, right?
But there's hope in programs like the Women's Enterprise Skills Training of Windsor, also known as WEST. That's how Alyssa Sickles joined the team at Laval.
It's been pretty great, especially that all the guys here made me feel welcome, and they all had a part in teaching me everything that I know so far.
She formally starts her apprenticeship in September after completing the millwright program at West.
It opened my eyes to a world that I didn't really know about, and I was more intrigued and wanted to learn more.
Sickles represents the future, the people who can help fill the gap as people retire. The companies need many more workers like her, and quickly. For Jenner, he's focused on a succession plan.
It is nerve-wracking because you want to leave it, hopefully, in a as good or better place than when I started. And there's lots of work to do. Especially
if the Stellantis electric vehicle battery plant gets built. We know that's at a standstill right now over financing from the federal and provincial governments. But if that comes through as promised, there will be even more demand across skilled trades. And there's still no deal to secure that $4.9 billion battery plant here in Windsor. Upper levels of government have been negotiating with Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions for nearly 2 weeks now.
We're waiting for the federal government to finish off the deal. As you know, we put in our fair share. Now we're stepping up again to put more money because it's all about the people. It's all about making sure they have the jobs down in Windsor region and right across southwestern Ontario.
Last week, Premier Doug Ford announced Ontario will put more money on the table to secure the investment. However, he did not specify how much. Construction on the plant is already underway, although much of it has been paused as these talks continue. It's expected to bring 2,500 jobs to the region. However, earlier this month, Stellantis said it was exploring some undisclosed contingency plans. That's because the automaker says the federal government has not kept its promises during negotiations. The feds committed $500 million to the Windsor battery plant in March of last year. However, in April, Ottawa announced it's offering $13 billion in incentives for the Volkswagen plant in St. Thomas. That's why some experts have said the deal is being renegotiated. A local Liberal MP says a deal with Stellantis is getting close.
The scale of investment we're talking about here is absolutely unprecedented. So this does take a little bit of time. And I just wanted to emphasize as well that really it's about partnership. It's about all levels of government working together. I was pleased to see that the Ontario government finally came to the table. That was an important move. And that's what gives me confidence we're going to get this agreement done in a short fashion.
The community of Wallaceburg is reeling following the deaths of 3 young people over the weekend. They died when the car they were in collided with a tanker truck on Sunday. Police haven't said how the crash may have happened or if any charges will be laid. The 3 victims were 23 and 24 years old. 2 of their friends are recovering from injuries suffered in the crash. Local pastors are planning a special prayer service next week. The pastor of the First Baptist Church in Wallaceburg says they want to help people deal with the tragedy.
Just to continue to intercede for everyone involved, like the first responder people, the truck driver, the families of these young people, their friends, the wider community. You limp forward, there will be a festering wound with the scab picked off every time there's a birthday, every time there's a Christmas. Even driving past the site, there's a reminder continually of this awful event.
Funeral directors in Ontario are sounding the alarm to help foreign students in Canada. They worry there are too many deaths among the students who often live alone. Advocates are calling for more culturally sensitive mental health care. CBC's Kirthana Sasitaran explains.
For years, Kamal Bardwaj has been sending the remains of Indian students back to their home country and sees what he calls a troubling trend, a rise of deaths.
We're about 4 to 5 a month right now, currently as we stand, so it has gone up throughout the years.
Directors at the Lotus Funeral Home say they have seen an increase in the number of deaths, some caused by overdose or suicide. They have repatriated remains of students from Ontario, Manitoba, New Brunswick, and PEI.
Being as a parent, that when I see their how they died, the cause of death, that makes me upset by myself. Why this happening? This number will grow. Mental sickness is growing very, very rapidly.
The funeral home says they repatriated 8 young Indian nationals in 2018. In 2022, it was 33. Citing privacy concerns, they wouldn't specify how many of those deaths are mental health related.
Officially, it's hard to get a firm grip on how big of an issue this is. The Canadian government doesn't track it, and CBC didn't hear back from the Indian embassy in Ottawa. But here in Toronto, the Indian consulate tells me 25 students died last year in this province alone, almost a third from suicide. And by March of this year, 2 more suicides. More recent deaths remain under investigation.
That's much higher than the national suicide rate. Jaspreet Singh, founder of the International Sikh Student Association, says better, more detailed data tracking on the issue would be helpful, especially given the pressures some students face.
He's bringing, or she is bringing, the expectations of families. When they saw they can't, stay upon the expectations of their families and friends. I mean, from South Asian perspective, it's a matter of life and death, right?
Staff at Punjabi Community Health Services offer supports for students.
A lot of it's been being homesick. A lot of these folks come from large families where somebody's checking in on them, asking them how their day was, things like that. And when they come here, a lot of them are alone.
Callan says the organization has intervened in the past, going so far as sending emotionally struggling students back to India to be with their families before it's too late.
The families were very thankful. They were able to understand what their child was going through.
Colleges Ontario is taking notice too. They say they will provide more information to international students on how they can access mental health support. Kirtan Asasi, Darren, CBC News, Toronto.
The fight over holding a public inquiry into potential foreign meddling in Canada's elections continues. 2 opposition parties are demanding it go ahead, even though the Prime Minister says no, and the report into the issue released yesterday recommended against it. Evan Dyer explains.
It was written in 1970.
In Winnipeg, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reiterated his offer to open the books for leaders of opposition parties.
We have offered to the leaders of all the parties in the House the capacity to get the security clearances necessary so that they can look at that raw intelligence themselves.
And Trudeau condemned leaders who declined to take up his offer.
Pierre Poilievre is choosing to sit behind a veil of ignorance instead. He doesn't want the facts to get in the way of a good political argument or a personal attack.
But the leaders of the 2 biggest opposition parties both said they saw the offer as a trap because they'll be under oath to keep secret whatever they learn.
And then they will tell everybody that everything is fixed because the leaders of the opposition parties have seen something which they can do nothing about.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says there's no substitute for a public inquiry.
CSIS itself has said in its briefings to the Prime Minister and to the other members of the government that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Both leaders said they will allow members of caucus who sit on the committees to hear the secret evidence, but won't attend themselves in order to preserve their freedom to speak.
It's too bad because I would like to see both leaders of those parties get as much information as they can.
Former Conservative Senator Vern White sat on the National Security Committee. He acknowledges that secrets come with strings attached.
Well, it does handcuff them because realistically they're being given that intelligence based on the fact that it'll be kept secret. But it doesn't stop them from asking questions.
Opposition members who do get to see the raw intelligence already seen by David Johnston would be able to say they don't agree with his conclusions, but they wouldn't be able to say why not. It could create a situation rather like today's, with the opposition still demanding a public inquiry and the government still unwilling to call one. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
A scary moment overnight in the middle of Lake Erie when part of a cargo ship caught fire. The MV Cuyahoga was headed for Kingsville and is still stuck in the water. CBC News spoke with a member of the International Shipmasters Association about what happened.
They knew what to do, according to my friend who I spoke to, who knew the captain very well. He said the captain was calm, cool, and collected through the entire thing, knew how to handle the situation. He kept his crew calm, cool, and collected. They did what they had to do, and they made sure everybody was safe and accounted for in the end. And that's all we can really ask for.
According to the U.S. Coast Guard, an engine on the ship caught fire, but the crew on board was able to put it out. The Canadian Coast Guard brought 8 members of the crew ashore and says they are continuing to monitor the situation. The town of Tecumseh is getting more than $3.6 million to replace 2 diesel buses with accessible electric ones.
Buses, I think it sends a clear message to our folks out there that we want to start building our community to be as close as we can to zero-base carbon.
Tecumseh's mayor joined Liberal MP Eric Kusmerchuk for the announcement today. The investment will also add an electric vehicle charging station, plus the construction of roughly 2.5 kilometers of multi-use pathways along L'Esperance Road. The project was funded partly by the federal government as well as contributions from the town. The new accessible and electric buses will be on the road starting June 1st. Turning now to some sad news from the world of entertainment. The irrepressible, charismatic, and multi-Grammy award-winning singer Tina Turner has died at the age of 83. Also known as the Queen of Rock and Roll, Turner burned up stages and sold out concerts, mesmerizing fans with her powerhouse vocals and fancy footwork. She became famous in the 60s singing with husband Ike Turner's blues band. The singer made headlines when she left him in 1976, calling him a drug addict who beat her. Now, if success is the best revenge, Turner wrote the book on that too. She went on to become one of the best-selling artists in music history, with a string of top hits in the 80s and 90s. Turner's tumultuous life and rise from poverty to fame added to her legend. She retired in 2015. Her family says she died peacefully after a long illness at her home in Switzerland. It was so sad to hear that she died today. Live look outside now. Clear conditions for the week ahead, both overnight and in the daytime. We've got sunshine on the way and lots of double digits. Colette will be with us after the break to tell us more about this, but also nice weather means that it is gardening season. And in a few minutes, you'll hear about how gardening has a deep meaning for some folks in Windsor. Stay with us. the season for gardening, and while some just like to get their hands dirty, for others there's a deeper meaning. We spoke with people across Windsor about what's in their garden, and tonight you'll hear from one couple that's been growing the same garlic for 35 years.
We grow garlic, and garlic is good. It came over from my wife's relatives, and they said, "Oh, you like garlic?" "Oh yeah, we like garlic."
My grandparents are from Yugoslavia, and it was my mom's cousin who passed some of this garlic on to us. And we grew it at our first house, and then since then we've been growing it here. We've given it to dozens of people so that they can grow it in their yard as well. That's just one of the parts of your immigration story that you can pass on. So our son now grows it in his house now that he's a happy homeowner.
If a recipe calls for a clove or two, okay, well maybe 4 or 5 is better. We definitely like garlic and a lot of the things that we make. So French cuisine, Italian, Lebanese, Greek. Like, we like to eat, so we like to cook.
We're going to bring in Colette Kennedy now for a look at weather, but we're going to talk about gardening, Colette, because 'tis the season for real. And I'm sad because this year I don't have it in me to garden, given my pregnancy right now. But I wish I could, because I miss it. I love it so much.
Yeah, and I love that story. I'd like to have some of that garlic that they have there. Really wonderful. That's why I thought we'd start off with the frost advisory, not for southwestern Ontario, but if we're talking about gardening, there are still areas looking at the risk of frost. And there's the possibility of some patchy frost getting a little closer, but I think our temperatures are, not only are temperatures mild, but we're going to be seeing the winds still kicking up enough that it's unlikely. But be aware of that. Now I'm going to take you from frost to tropical weather. You may have been hearing about super typhoon that's been passing across Guam in the last 24 hours. And there, I mean, they're looking at some of these wave heights of between 7 and 8 meters. The rainfall amounts between 350, 400 millimeters of rain through here. So, yeah, watching this area carefully. And you heard me mention a typhoon. And if you're wondering, what's the difference between that and a hurricane? I thought maybe we'd go through a little bit of a graphic here because we're getting very close to our hurricane season. So just talking about what we can expect here over the next little while is as we get into June, the Atlantic hurricane season begins. And if you can see me here struggling, I'm not getting my maps to my graphics to advance because I want to show you this graphic, but maybe we'll have to talk about it coming up tomorrow, and I'll try and put it in there. I'm going to jump ahead to something I know I can get working. So today, what we had with the front that went through, the reason our winds have really been kicking up from the north and gusty. We've been seeing gusts over 50, even over 55 kilometers an hour. That's that front going through and allowing that cooler air from the north to move in, all right? So even though the temperature going up to 20 degrees today, it had a bit of a cooler feel. So tomorrow, we're into that air, we get sunshine, and if you'll notice through this 5-day period, no active weather to be found. I put that frost advisory up. I mean, that's about the only thing to be looking for. Otherwise, with this ridge of high pressure, we're looking at a low tonight around 7 degrees. Okay, there'll be areas close by cooler, and then 7 tomorrow after a high of 18. And then we start to see things building. As we get on the backside of this ridge, we get into a southerly flow and the temperatures will start to warm up. So dry conditions through the period. You're probably noticing going into the weekend, we're talking about some mid-20s. And Katarina, by the time we get into Monday, that's when we're going to be seeing some upper 20s coming back into the forecast. So quite a run ahead of us. And we'll talk about typhoons and hurricanes tomorrow. They're the same thing, to answer the question that I posed. Once the winds are over 119 kilometers an hour, it just depends what part of the world.
Okay, well, thank you, and you're always a pro, even when technical difficulties strike. So thanks for that, Colette.
I'm gonna throw this thing. Yeah,
it happens. It's all good. Thank you. When we come back, why did cops in Michigan call in a cowboy to help solve a problem? That's coming right up. Award-winning Canadian actor Michael J. Fox sat down with CBC's Harry Forrestal to talk about his new documentary, Still, and living with Parkinson's disease. More than 100,000 Canadians have Parkinson's, including Forrestal. Here's some of that conversation.
One of the things the doctor said to me too early on was that I had 10 years left to work. And he said, well, the good thing is you have 10 years left to work. I was 29 years old, and a lot of expensive real estate.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Stuff that I needed to take care of, and kids go to school, and so I started to work, and well, I worked a lot, and one of the things that I came to over time was that I didn't need to do that, and that I wanted to be with my family, and I needed to look at things that I wasn't gonna let. The big thing I learned, I wasn't gonna let Parkinson's drive the bus. You know, I can't run the bus now. I wasn't gonna let Parkinson's drive the bus.
Fox's new documentary looks back on his storied career and shines a light on his public and private battle with Parkinson's. And you can catch Harry's full conversation with Michael J. Fox tonight on The National. That's on CBC News Network at 9 Eastern Time and streaming on CBC Gem and Explore. The National will air on CBC television after the hockey game. And before we go, we want to tell you about how police in Michigan had to call in a cowboy to help them out of a jam on Sunday. They released the video today out of Oakland County. A very determined cow took off from the ranch running across a major highway. Police admit they had to call in reinforcements. Some are calling it utter chaos. Police say Lester the steer will not be charged. And that is it for CBC Windsor News. For more, go to cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.